So if you think about OpenAI, 18 months ago, nobody knew it. But most importantly, 18 months ago, it was a research project. And then 18 months later, you have a company that turned over 1 billion with 700 employees. And the question is, was the infrastructure, including the governance, built 18 months ago, ready to be scaled at the same speed?
Hi everyone. So you may have seen that I tried to follow the Sama saga, as we call it, the Sam Altman being fired, being back, etc., and I don't want to lose time there. And I immediately, obviously not only me, but everybody understood that it's not only an AI issue, but it was a governance issue. So I thought, okay, who do I know that can explain me better what exactly happened and what should have happened in terms of governance? Davide Sola. We met, he didn't remember, 15 years ago during an acquisition, and we stay connected. Hi, Davide.
Hi everyone.
And you're in Italian in London, correct?
I live in London. Yes, I married a British woman. So since 23 years, I'm based in London, North London, and where I'm a professor at business school, and I am also the CEO of Strategy in Action and Three Horizon, which are tech companies in the sector.
And so, give me, I know, as many of us, you have followed with a bit more intelligence about the subject, what has happened in this case, in this week, because it's less than a week, 5 days.
Well, I would say that this is, you mentioned a governance problem. Probably it's a bit deeper than that. And just to give you a little bit of background, my academic research is around scaling, and in particular scaling tech ventures, which are particularly relevant in this case. And to give you a little bit of background, when you're scaling, you're talking about X-fold growth, 10, 20, 100. So if you think about OpenAI, 18 months ago, nobody knew it. But most importantly, 18 months ago, it was a research project. And a research project that was designed as a research project, initially funded by some entrepreneur like Elon Musk, and having people like Sam Altman that was coming from Y Combinator, which of course was bringing a business background, and but it was a research project. So the governance was of a non-profit, and then 18 months later, you have a company that turned over 1 billion with 700 employees, monetizing something that people thought you would not be able to monetize for a few years. And the question is, was the infrastructure, including the governance, built 18 months ago, ready to be scaled at the same speed? And that includes, are the bylaws, are the organizational structure, including all the constitutional act, ready for such a growth? Could they flex? Could they be stretched for a company that is immensely more complex, that has huge amount of revenue and users? You're talking about millions and millions of people using it, having received a huge amount of funding from Microsoft and other investors. And the question is the governance ready to be stretched? Are the people ready to be stretched? Because one thing is to be a group of people doing a research project, and the same group of people, including the board and the management, having to manage an organization that is immensely more complex. And this is a typical issue that happens with scale up.
Yeah, I took the schema that is on the OpenAI website. So explain quickly what you see here. And
but what you see here is a very classic, probably, not even too complicated structure, where you add the initial organization, which I said was a sort of research project built as a charter of a charity, that then built several additional boxes to be able to first receive funding from a commercial organization or private investors.
Yeah, like Microsoft in this case.
Like Microsoft. So Microsoft is the bigger one, but there are plenty of others that have invested. There is a bit of who is who in the Silicon Valley in OpenAI, and also other entities more to do commercial activities like charging people for ChatGPT-4 and all this kind of stuff. So for the GPT-4 Plus. And those are just the classic structure. The issue is we don't know the bylaws, we don't know the constitutional act, where there are the things. What we understood is that the board was appointed, and it was appointed as a research project, and they have to deal with something that really exploded on their hands. And of course, in all those things, there are personality involved and there is money involved. There are some clues that have been given, but the issue is, of course, always when you have such mammoth growth, can what you design at the beginning to do something be stretched to cope with such complexity? And clearly, the answer is no. And
I've read, obviously, it was so fast and volatile that comments have the validity of comments that you read, even from very, I would say, authoritative people, have lasted 3-4 hours. No, so, but the fact, how do you see Satya Nadella? Because at the end, I think I've seen today comments like he possibly the best CEO of the year. So he really was calm and managed the situation. On one hand, it's a bit weird that they didn't put anybody in the board when they invested 10 billion. Traditionally, nobody would do that in a normal situation, right? Why do you think they did it?
It was not a normal situation. This was a research. The governance was still structured on the top with a research type, which was not, because there was not an investment at the beginning. So the board members were not appointed as a representation of shareholders because there were none. This was a research project.
But you think it was also like a mediatic, obviously 10 billion for Microsoft is not like 10 billion for all of us, but so it's not huge money maybe for them, but still you put that money, and in a normal situation without the media attention,
so let me correct you. They didn't put the money.
Board.
They committed the money.
They committed. Okay.
It's very different. Yeah.
Okay.
So they put an amount of money, but like in all those things, they come in different installments, and they can only call it off. Yeah. So the power of Nardella was the power who owns the wallet. Yeah. And
okay.
Yeah.
So there was not the full risk already up front.
No.
But on the other end, do you think that now obviously the situation will be a lot different? Clearly, we don't know exactly what happened. I don't think you had some ideas on being moves in terms of creating, different structure, etc. But we don't know exactly what will happen. So we'll see if the final situation is something more, as you would say, traditional, which is fit for purpose, which is basically what you're advocating, I think.
Yeah, I mean, what is going to happen, it again will depend from the different stakeholders and the different weights. You ask about Nardella. Well, the key point, he was a very adult behavior of a very senior manager, but always, a lot of people portrayed the OpenAI side. He lost a lot of billions in the valuation of Microsoft. So what he did, it was self-protection of the asset that he is the CEO of. Yeah. Then of course he tried to calm down the markets because and it's not the 10 billion, it's the fact that a lot of the future products they depend or they have been highly geared towards OpenAI. So he just behave as a sensible CEO that tries to protect the share price and out of it maybe get an opportunity. But of course, all of this, now we will see what's happening. I mean, something seems that is being reinstalled back in OpenAI. And I think that probably will become more and more, not a division, but, an organization where Microsoft will have a little bit more impact. And they say that they would put an observer, or they might even get a board seat. But the reality is, when you are funding somebody, you got the checkbook. And the checkbook will make a lot of people stop arguing. And
clear. And so let's close it here in terms of OpenAI. But through the last 5 years, maybe, we have seen a lot of huge companies dissolving or exploding, FTX, etc. And at the end, there's always someone else. Even if the board maybe was better structured, but it seems governance in the end, or the execution of governance, was not appropriate for the case. Why do you think this is? It's like, we had the 2000 boom. It seems no lesson have been learned. How do you see, the fact that it's still happening a lot?
It's still happening a lot because it's structural, and it's not for anyone's fault. Is when you design a startup, you design it with a governance that most of the time you spend very little time. You buy an off-the-shelf company, You have bylaws, which are the classic one. And sometimes you're spending a little bit more sophistication out of it. But because you don't know yet if the company will be worth anything, you don't spend a lot of time into it. The issue is that as the speed picks up and the progress of the company accelerates, that's one of the least priorities to look at. And that should be really the job of good board members to remind the company that maybe the infrastructure, the foundation on which it was built, and it was fit for purpose when they were a startup, they're not anymore fit for purpose. But people, they tend to like to keep, because again, if you want to enlarge a board, it means that the existing board will have less power. So
there is a conflict of interest. There is a conflict of interest.
Or there is, a tendency to have status quo. And that is part of the, and typically those events, they trigger the fact that the infrastructure is not correct. Sometimes is, think about what is happening now, really yesterday or the other day with Binance, the other crypto. Which, again, it's a total issue of corporate veil and governance that was not overseeing CEOs. And this, again, tends to happen a lot more in places like Anglo-Saxon world or even America, because the CEO has enormous powers. And the board, they tend to be not friends and family, but people appointed by the CEO. Of course, in the German world, where you have two boards, the supervisory board and the management board, those things. But of course, you could advocate that the Anglo-Saxon world is much faster at taking decisions.
I see. Yes.
But it's faster at taking decision because one person takes the decision. So there is no really sounding board. On the other one, it takes much longer, and you tend to see much less big scandal. It doesn't mean that in Germany they don't have scandals, because they do have too. But
I've seen one or two documentaries also in Germany, to be honest.
Absolutely.
I don't remember the name.
That's the $1 billion. I think is called, is a documentary on
exactly.
Netflix. But it was a Delaware company, for your knowledge.
True.
It was based in Germany, but it was a Delaware company.
Va bene, true. Davide, thank you so much for the explanation. And let's see if, so scaling seems to be, the lesson learned is scaling. You have to manage scaling in a proper way, basically, right? You have to scale everything together.
In the different aspect, the human side, the human resources or the human capital, both at board level and management level. You have to look at on the legal side, on the governance, because what was fit for purpose when you are a startup, not necessarily, and typically is not the case when you're scaling up 100 times, as the case of OpenAI.
Va bene, thank you for the lesson, Professor.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.
Ciao, Davide.
Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.